Public service announcement. Passionate. Let me tell you something.
So what is this Passion PSA podcast? Who am I? Well, they call me Passion, short for passion no last necessary. Why is there no last name necessary? Because the first name says it all. I am Passion and all that embodies. What do I do here? I give you the life coaching that you know you need, but don't enroll yourself in. When did I start? Actually, 2017. I'd leave a PSA on my Instagram regarding something I'd observed, and now we've evolved to this. Why do I do it? Why not? If even one person is able to take away one thing that changes their life, someone else's life, or changes the world for the better, then I've done what I was charged to do. So come on in, sit and listen for a while. There's something here for everyone at the Passion PSA podcast.
Greetings and salutations, my beloved passionates, newcomers, visitors, and guests. Welcome to my second attempt of a very long overdue, another episode of the Passion PSA podcast, where I, Passion no last necessary, your Get You Right Guru, issue a weekly public service announcement about whatever I've observed or was on my mind. This is a for your consideration zone where the objective is to offer you a perspective you may not have previously considered to A, expand your thinking, and B, aid you in becoming a better version of yourself, for yourself, and for others. This is a safe space, but it's not necessarily a delicate one, okay? I'll never rob you of your right to feel what you feel. The same way, I'm not finna sugarcoat the truth to make it more palatable. The goal is to get you to higher, more expanded thinking so that you can operate as your highest and best self. If you are new here, affirmations are our first order of business so that we can intentionally raise the vibration and start on one accord. So let's get on the same frequency. If you're ready, go ahead and take a deep breath. You are always welcome to repeat after me, or to use this time to state your own affirmations. I am genuine. I am authentic. I am sincere. I am a person of merit. I am a person of valor. I'm a person of value. I'm a person of ardor. My word is my bond. My word has worth. I speak truth. I stand in truth. I live my truth. I accept any consequence of my truth. I am poised for accountability. I am well. It is well. All is well. Well is all. Ashe, ashe, ashe. Passionates, when I started composing this, I was inspired by a then recent event that has made its rounds around the internet and every other media platform at this point. But y'all know how I feel about discussing pop culture, right? People love watching and discussing everyone else's business because it allows them to not focus on everything that needs correction and or attention in their own lives. Nonetheless, I've been wanting to talk on this particular subject for about 2 years, and not only the opportunity, but now the necessity to cover the subject is upon us. So most of us, we watched the footage of this dude beating, stomping, and dragging Cassie. And then we saw that accountability reel. And of course, there was division. There were the people who watched the SmackDown asking, well, what did she do to deserve it? And after he said what he said, there were people saying, well, we all have our issues. We've all made mistakes. Only God can judge. And while it is true that no sin is greater than another, a great many of us will never be convinced that in our lives, even our most egregious errors and actions are comparable to what we witnessed in that hotel footage. Do we do things that have more lasting impact than we intended or expected? Yes. Do we do things that have deeper impact than we intended or expected? 100%. We talked about that in previous episodes. Just because you didn't mean for your statement or action to have the effect that it did doesn't negate how it was received. And so many of us are very callous in our acknowledgement of how our behavior is received. If we're entertained by what we said and we expect the other person to be entertained as well, even if the action or statement was at their expense, we feel like they should laugh and not take it so personal. People say things like, you need to learn to take a joke. You need to lighten up. You're too sensitive. It wasn't that deep. All of that is ego-driven. You feel in some way violated or harmed emotionally, mentally, even spiritually. And I feel like, well, yeah, but I'm amused. So put your feelings to the side and laugh with me because I think you too should be amused. And it's funny until you're the one in the hot seat. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on shoe on the other foot today. We can tarry on that in a future episode. Staying with this same example, even when someone states directly that they were bothered by what was said or done, very often there's an extended period before the person who made the statement or did the action will actually relent. We know what relent means? I got to make sure, because we need to be clear that relenting is not immediate accountability or correction. Relenting is after saying all the reasons the other person should take your statement or action in stride, and them holding their ground and saying, yeah, nah, we're not doing that. That's not going to fly. That ain't it. I got a problem with what's happening here, and this energy don't change until you change. You finally say, all right, it was just a joke. And even then, there's still this struggle to be guiltless. It was a joke. I didn't mean anything by it. I was just kidding. And more times than not, it's not just those statements being made, but the tone of the delivery. There's a difference between, I apologize, it was not my intention to offend you. It really was just a joke. I was just kidding. And relax. I was just kidding. Stop being so sensitive. I didn't mean anything by it. And you might be wondering how any of this is related to this dude, but it all boils down to sincerity. Never in the history of ever was there a time when someone hit, kicked, stomped, and dragged someone, then threw things at them and didn't mean anything by it. At the place where you do something like that, the intention is to harm them into submission. The goal is to break their spirit so they never feel empowered to do whatever it is they did. Try to leave, disagree, refuse a request, a directive, a command. They never feel empowered to do one or any of the above again. So when you get up on somebody's internet and post things like, then double down 5 months and 8 days later with, then video evidence is released of one of what can reasonably be assumed to be many horrific assaults 3 days later. Then 2 days after that, there's this questionable, and that's putting it mildly, apology. Sincerity will always and rightfully be questioned. Now, we're not going to live in the Diddyverse today. But since this example is on display, we're going to use that to draw comparisons throughout today's episode. Passionates, you ever have a conflict with someone and it caused a rift where an apology was the minimum acceptable, or you just weren't moving from where you were? And like, maybe it wasn't so much that an apology was due. Maybe it was just that you had reached an impasse that was either going to require some type of amends or the relationship would just cease. A lot of us have been on the side of it where we felt wronged, and until the offending party did some recon, we just weren't going forward. The interesting thing is how many of us have been on the receiving end of the offense and had all these requisites and requirements to go forward, but how our minds conveniently retard and become unclear of how to rectify the situation when we become the offender. And we've talked about it repeatedly, that it's all about perspective. And while from your perspective, it shouldn't even have been offensive, we don't get to decide anyone else's emotional response to our statements, especially if the intentions have been left up to interpretation. We're clear what I'm saying here, yes? It was meant as a joke, but received as an insult. You can think it's the funniest thing in the world, but that doesn't mean the receiving party does, and doesn't mean they took it wrong, or they don't know how to take a joke, or that they need to lighten up and not take themselves so seriously. I pose this to you today because there are a lot of people who get real simple-minded and dense when it comes to offering apology. They want to offer a blanket apology or blanket statement and then become perturbed when they're questioned. What am I talking about? How many of you have received an "I'm sorry for whatever I did or said" apology? Because I know I have. I wasn't accepting it way back when, and it's not flying for me now. Because whatever I said or did, well, what was it that you said? What did you do? And baby, if you ever wanted to set someone off for not accepting their apology, question the motive. Now, you have some that will say, whatever it was, I accept any and all responsibility. You have some that will say, I honestly don't know. And of course, the favorites are the ones that get defensive. They feel like the effort to extend the apology was more than enough, and you need to take that for what it is. Some of the latter group are in this audience. Let's talk about why none of these are gonna fly. How could you possibly be offering a sincere apology if you don't know what you're apologizing for? And someone is saying,
Passion, because I didn't mean to make them feel that way. I definitely didn't mean for them to have such an extreme reaction.
okay, so are you apologizing for what you said or did? Or are you apologizing because of the results yielded? Because those are two very different things. You know this? If I lied to you for whatever reason, apologizing for lying to you is first acknowledging what I did, so you know that I'm aware that the lie was problematic. If I apologize for lying to you because I know I hurt you and I violated your trust, I'm not only acknowledging what I did, but I'm acknowledging the impact. If I apologize for whatever I did or said, well, for all intents and purposes, I could just be trying to put an end to how you're treating me now. And in too many cases, that's exactly what it is.
That would be, if I'm saying for whatever I did, I mean, this is the anything else that I may have done.
And to the person offering this explanation, beloved, you're not a martyr. You're Reuben Studdard. And this is my sorry for 2004. I ain't gonna mess up no more this year. There is so much more value in the apology that is offered for the situation in question as opposed to a generic, whatever you mad at me for, I don't even know what it is, but since you feel that way, we don't even have to discuss it. You're right, I'm wrong, let's move on. It's dismissive, it's obtuse, it's gaslighting, and it's telling.
Telling? Well, what do you mean telling?
It is a red flag waving on the horizon that whatever the problem was that warranted the apology in the first place is almost guaranteed to be a problem again. If you don't know it's a problem without someone explaining it, then you probably don't have an issue with it. Now, the best part is when they do have an issue with it, but only when it's done to them. We're staying on topic. If you don't know it's a problem because it wouldn't be a problem if someone did it to you, the chances of you not doing it again are very, very slim. And the chances of you trying to minimize the response by saying something to the effect of, you were upset over that, are very, very high. After someone expresses to you that they were upset over X, to then turn around and ask them incredulously if X is in fact what they were upset by, is triggering. That's almost as incensing as apologizing to someone that they took it that way. Apologizing to someone for how they responded is just shy of challenging their comprehension, emotional intelligence, and ability to process their feelings.
Passion, you making it way deeper than it actually is. I'm sorry you took it that way. It means you didn't take it the way I meant it.
And beloved, if it was received any other way than intended, that is the responsibility of the speaker, not the listener. Inflection, tone, delivery, those are all part of speech. This is why word usage is important. This is why knowing the definition of the word you're using is important. This is why enunciation is important. This is why intention is important. When you speak with intention, you are being purposeful with what you say and how. I remember talking to someone who would say things to me that could be interpreted in different ways. You're amazing. You're something else. It was clear to me that they liked to play mind games, so they would say things that had dual meaning, knowing or hoping that the receiver would assume it was a compliment, also knowing that it was fully intended to at least be a jab, if not an outright insult. So when they would throw those things out, I would question it. Playing mind games is fun until you come across a thinker. Needless to say, we don't speak anymore, and not just for that, but that was definitely a constant point of conflict in our engagement.
Okay, Passion, but if the intention was good or harmless and you took it out of context, how am I still guilty? Like, you're just blameless and faultless?
Leave no room for anything to be taken out of context. You remember a few seasons back, it might have been the last podcast, but I know we've talked about advising someone of the intention before even making the statement. I know this could offend. That's not the intention. That type of thing. But here's the thing. With an intentional, well thought out apology, there's nothing to take out of context. I acknowledge the transgression, how I transgressed, how it was harmful, and here's the seal. I won't do it again. The confirmation is you actually not doing it again. Not doing it to that person, not doing it at all. Because the best apology is changed behavior. It's also the best reflection of your growth. So again, how did we even get here? A lot of us saw that reel that Dingy Cone put out. An amazing many accepted it as sincere and felt like he was really pouring his heart out. People who have never met him said he's a changed man. Judge not, lest ye be judged first. Let he who is without sin cast the first stone. Child, they rallied for him in those comments. And then there was everyone else. There were the domestic violence survivors, the people who read body language, those of us who know we aren't behavioral analysts, but had the sense enough to tune into a behavioral analyst to get their take on what they saw. Those of us who saw this statement that I showed you earlier, then saw this post, then saw the footage, then watched the reel and called cap. Because sincerity, because an apology offered after you can no longer deny the truth is empty, because the arrogance that preceded that apology was clearly and undeniably heartfelt, and the apology screams media spin to make the situation look better and make Dingy look redeemable. But let's refer solely back to the language he used. Money said, it's so difficult to reflect on the darkest times in your life. Sometimes you gotta do that. I was effed up. I hit rock bottom, but I make no excuses. My behavior on that video is inexcusable. I take full responsibility for my actions in that video. I'm disgusted. I was disgusted then when I did it. I'm disgusted now. I went and I sought out professional help. I had to go into therapy and go in rehab. Had to ask God for his mercy and grace. I'm so sorry, but I'm committed to be a better man every day. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm truly sorry. Reflecting on the darkest times in one's life is a real thing. But while it's relative, this isn't relatable. Dark is subjective. I've had people describe relatives to me and say they are black as night, then show me pictures of these same relatives and they're lighter than me. So darkness can't necessarily be compared because my dark ain't the same as your dark. That aside, there's a lot of speculation now if the darkest time he's referring to was then or now that he's in the hot seat. Another topic for another episode. Okay. So he made excuses for his behavior, then said he makes no excuses. He specifies that his behavior in that video, was inexcusable. Not his behavior at the time, but a sentence ago, it was the darkest period in his life. So in the darkest period in his life, he did all of what we saw, but only that one time? Hard to believe, being that he was vehemently denying ever having carried out any such actions. Hard to believe, considering what we watched was the play-by-play of what was written in the suit against him. Hard to believe, especially because he followed up by saying he takes full responsibility for his actions in that video. But all the other allegations where either the evidence has already been destroyed or it hasn't been released by the FBI yet, is he going to take full responsibility for those encounters too? Or will it then be, what can I say? I already said that was the darkest time of my life. Will he double down on the insistence that these false allegations were just a ploy for a payday? And really and truly, passionate, it doesn't matter either way. A whole world of people watched the same video, and one wally for them allowed their cognitive dissonance to say, well, maybe we didn't see what we just watched. There has to be more to the story to justify it. Meanwhile, he didn't even say there's more to the story. He flat out said it was him, he was wrong, there's no excuse, and people still trying to convince themselves otherwise. The most important parallel I want to draw brings us full circle to a previous point that I made. We're talking about the why behind the apology. I already stated that the dingy apology appears to be damage control more than anything, and I use appears loosely and solely to give room for that modicum of possibility that this statement was more than just a press release advised by a PR manager. But based on his own word usage, it seems very much that is indeed the why, because now there's irrefutable evidence. It brings to mind that Rihanna song. Don't tell me you're sorry, 'cause you're not. Baby, when I know you're only sorry you got caught. While almost anyone who's been wronged or feels wronged, almost without question, wants to know what it is you're apologizing for, like I said earlier. More important than them asking you is you asking yourself. Is it a PR stunt? You doing it for the gram? You doing it for the people that you know are going to find out about it so they know that you at least tried to make amends? Like, you doing it so that you can grant yourself pardon for the transgression? So you can say,
I mean, I can't take it back, but I did apologize. If that's not enough, I don't know what else to say.
the question begs ponderance and response, because how many of you in the audience would apologize for an offense if you knew the apology wouldn't be well received or accepted? Some of y'all gonna keep it a stack, and y'all just gonna admit that you feel it would be a waste of time if it wasn't gonna be accepted. Some of y'all sitting there lying to your screens talking about,
I'd still apologize.
now should you make the effort even if the apology might be rejected? 100%.
Nah, Passion, I'm not groveling for anyone. You know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna go through all that just to be shut down. That's like you trying to punish me. If I can humble myself and apologize, you should be able to accept that I admitted I was wrong.
It could all be so simple. But it's not, and here's why. When you use one general word for different tiers of transgression, the word has no value without supporting context. Let's use the example of cheating. If you cheated out of frustration, you may actually be sorry because of the act, the hurt it caused your partner, and the fallout after everything came out. If you cheated out of spite, you may only be sorry because the fallout has had a negative impact on you. If your intention in cheating was to get back at your partner and your goal was to hurt them, but you didn't consider that they would destroy your belongings and put you out of the house, and now you have nowhere to go, well, yeah, I bet you would be sorry that it came to this. But that don't mean you sorry for cheating. Because let's keep it real. Who's sorry that they got some if the some they got was good? Sorry you got hurt in the process and sorry I even did it is two very different things. People who cheat on their diets might be sorry about their lack of willpower, but they were not and are not now sorry that when they sunk their teeth into that delectable bite of forbidden pleasure, that it tasted that good. And truth be told, there are more people who are only sorry if they cheated and it was whack, especially if they didn't get caught. I remember a friend relapsing and taking a hit after years of being clean, and they were disappointed in themselves for doing it, but even more regretful because they disrupted their sobriety and didn't even get high for real. A drunk driver hits someone and kills them. They say sorry. A husband cheated on his wife and made a whole other family outside of his marriage. He too said sorry. My goddaughter knocked over the garbage can and a few easy to clean up articles fell on the floor. And she said, sorry. Exactly. She said sorry. 3 very different tiers of offense and the same offering for all of them. Yeah, Passion, because it's all rooted in sorrow. Most of us assume that because they sound similar, but etymology says otherwise. The etymological root of sorry is sore, as in physical pain, unlike sorrow, whose root origin is grief, regret, trouble, care, anxiety. Apology, by definition, is a regretful acknowledgement of an offense or failure. Now, that's per Oxford Languages. That's the current definition. Dictionary.com says a written or spoken expression of one's regret, remorse, or sorrow for having insulted, failed, injured, or wronged another. Merriam-Webster 1A says an admission of error or discourtesy accompanied by an expression of regret. And 2A says something that is said or written to defend something that other people criticize. 2A was the definition at the time of first use in 1533. And the etymology of the word is from Middle English, borrowed from Middle French, and Late Latin. Those were all borrowed from Greek. Point is, 2A looks very much like what we saw in that reel. A statement made to defend something that John Q. Public was criticizing. And if you're confused as to how it was a statement of defense, refer back to The Dark Time, The Rock Bottom, The Need for Therapy, and God's Grace. Beloveds, we could sit here and dissect this reel further. We could sit here and psychoanalyze the responses under the reel and speculate on who's a beater and who's being beaten. We could do all of that. But for why? Because after it's all said and done, if you walk away from this episode offering ashy apologies, trying to humanize yourself in explanation after displaying yourself as a monster in action, still claiming not to understand why intention and word choice and surrounding action are all critical components of an apology, either you a lie and the truth ain't in you, you're dense, or there's a psychological issue present. Now, maybe you're a psychopath. Maybe you are a narcissist. Maybe you're an egomaniac. I don't know. I don't have the degree to diagnose. But one thing's for sure and two things for certain. You can say you don't know what the problem is, but you can't say it's because it was never explained. If you're going to apologize to someone for whatever, but especially if it was something that has caused the relationship to be stagnated or forever altered, offer the apology you would want. Offer the apology you would accept according to their reaction, not yours. If they're telling you what transpired was enough to make them never want to deal with you again, who cares if you think they're dragging it and they're going too far? Are you willing to sacrifice the relationship? If you are, cool. Beat your feet and don't stick around trying to explain to them why they shouldn't feel how they feel. The moment when I know you lying. The moment when someone is telling you how they feel is never the moment to diminish their feelings. I said it before, but it bears repeating because this cannot be stressed enough. If you are apologizing contingent upon the other person's acceptance of your apology, you don't really mean it, so keep. I hurt you, so I want to apologize for it. But if you don't accept it, that'll hurt me, and I don't want to be hurt, so I'd rather you stay hurt instead. Those might not be your words, but that's definitely how you're coming off. They're entitled to not accept your apology. It doesn't mean they don't acknowledge it. But sometimes the apology that's due can't really do much to make the other person feel better. All it can do is advise them that you are aware of the damage done and you regret that there was damage in the first place. Sorry ain't never raised the dead. Sorry ain't never unbeat or unabused a survivor. Sorry ain't never erased infidelity or made outside children unhappy. So the reason for acknowledging but not accepting the apology is very valid. And so is the necessity of offering a sincere apology worthy of acknowledgement, even in the face of possible rejection. Passionists, we did a lot of work today. I'm rushing to get back to work right now. I know y'all got feedback from me. Leave me some comments. Send me some listener letters. Send them to my brilliant friend passion@gmail.com while the website is still being worked on. If you want a part 2, which would be how to accept the apology, comment accept below and I'll get to work on that ASAP. If you love it here, consider making a financial donation. I do all of this out of pocket and I will not be the least bit offended by some help. Okay? Links to PayPal, Podbean, Zelle, and Linktree are all below. Every penny counts. Thank you in advance. And with that, your Get You Right guru is signing off and headed back to work. Y'all go forth, be great, be filled with bliss, be armed and empowered with knowledge. Apologize because they deserve it. Make the apology worth listening to and accepting. Sincerity is the priority. In all things, be passionate. See you later.